Hey guys, stroking out here in the shop, laying down the gloss, the oil-based, fast-dry, MinWax polyurethane that I know and love. I just wanted to show you how it goes. So, let's do a little stroking out over here. I'm using a high-quality foam brush. I like foam brushes because they don't leave bristles, and if you run them right, they lay a beautiful coat. I started doing spar varnish on yachts in 1988, and that used to be my thing for about a year and a half. That's all I did was varnish. Miles and miles of cap rails and toe rails and all that good stuff. So anyway, I'll just show you how I roll it. Roll my own finish here. When you're coming to an edge, obviously you don't want a holiday, but you don't want drool. So I just settle right up to it, push into it just a little bit, and I've experimented around with this brush, so when it's loaded I get about half the panel with good coverage. I just keep the angle consistent. I only work with one side of the brush wet, so I always drag one side. You have to have a flat thing to drag it on. You can't drag it on a round can. Don't work out of the can. Get yourself a little something to work out of. Preferably with a sharp, straight edge. And then you just move right along. Not too fast, not too slow, just watch what it's doing. Look for holidays, try not to leave any bubbles. And then the trick is to come right up beside it without making any extra material on it, so that you don't get a high ripple. Once again, I just settle right up to the edge, pad the brush right into it, and just let it do its thing, and I overlap it just a little bit. I'm really tempted to drag the brush all the way across, but then you run dry right towards the end and you have to pad one last time. It's just more efficient to stop in the middle. And I settle down right where I'm going, but I start moving right away so I don't leave a puddle. And you just work right off the piece. And that's how I do it. This is the first coat, so it's going to be really bubbly and rough and stuff, just because there's air in the wood. And as the varnish goes into the pores of the wood, air bubbles are going to come out. It's just life. That's why you'd always want to put two coats, minimum. I mean, even if you just don't even care, put two coats. First coat's basically a sealer coat. Gives you something to sand without taking your stain off. And settle right on it. Get it wetting out again. Pull right along at a nice pace. Right off the edge. Don't push down at the edge. Lift up just a little bit, or you'll leave a puddle. I'm only dipping my brush to the bevel. On this foam brush I dip to the bevel. Drag one side. Got to watch everything all the time. Keep your eye on it. Make sure you're not leaving any holidays. You can't go back and touch them up. This stuff dries super fast. If you try to go back and touch anything up after maybe 5 minutes, you're screwed. You can go back, like right now, I could come back and I could stroke over the whole thing if I wanted to. Like if there's a lot of bubbles, I could just stroke right over it. And it'd be fine. But if I had a holiday and then I noticed it like a half hour later, forget about it. Just gonna have to catch it that next time. Or you could get in there with an artist brush and try and touch it up a little bit just to have some material there to sand, but in general, it never works out. And the way I run the bevel is I keep the bevel totally flat to the panel. This is why I don't glue anything up until I've done all this work, because I can do it so much better on the flat than I can like vertical. This stuff runs like a bastard. Really, the only way to do verticals, I think, with this is to do it side to side and then at the last stroke it out, because otherwise it runs all over the place. You can also add naphtha to it and spray it out of the spray gun, and it won't run as bad if you're careful. Well, I'll tell you what, to get set up to do spray, you buy a $4 brush and get spray-like results with this material anyway, on wood. So unless you're doing something really complicated that's already put together, this doesn't make a lot of sense to get in there and spray. I know this probably was not the most exciting video in the world, but this is one side of it. I gotta flip it over and do the other side. And then I'll just show you one last little thing about how I do the edges. After I've stroked out with the brush, still wet but not super wet, that's when I like to do the edges. Get right up in there, and I'm very careful not to leave a holiday, but at the same point I don't want to leave so much material on it that it sags and leaves a lip on it. That's why I like a slightly dry brush. Okay, and then I got to come around and do this other side, and then I'll flip it. And that's why I have nails coming out of the ends of it, where I can, you know, where it's possible to do that without a problem. The reason I do that is so that I can handle the wet panel without touching it. Obviously, you don't want to touch the damn wet panel. That would be a disaster. You gotta make sure to keep your brush super clean all the time. No excuses. And I got these guys over here clamped down. I got these guys here like this. And the easiest way I know to do this is not to try and rotate it. That never seems to work out right. But to tilt it and get it just about where you need it. Let's put one of the nails up on here if I can get it to do what I want. There we go. And make sure I'm off the edge. Come down on that little bastard there. And here we go. And ta-da. Now, if I ended up drooling like this, this is what I do. I wipe it with my finger and wipe it right into the wood real fast, like before it dries, and it doesn't do anything. Now I'm going to come around and do it again. But since you've already seen the whole operation, I'll save you the tedium, and you can just imagine the beauty of it all when it's done. Thanks for watching. Alright, so I've got all the different surfaces coated now. And it's about time to pop open that Sam Adams I've had leering at me on the bench. But I just wanted to point out that you can't do this kind of work effectively in a dirty environment, dusty environment. Can't have a lot of moving air, moving dust around. So I've got the shop at an ideal temperature right now. It's 55 degrees, which is the bare minimum that this stuff works at. And what it does is it gives me a lot of time to work it. So on a hot day, you know, you got to really have your chops together, because it'll lay down before you even get a chance to lay another stripe. But when it's cold like this, you got lots of time, and then it'll just it'll eventually dry, but it takes its sweet time. You got to be clean, so I have gone out of my way to not just do a cursory cleaning, but I took every single toolbox out. I cleaned behind it, under it, around it, because I've been working for 10 hours making those shot shell opening tools, and that has made a gigantic amount of dust, because I've used every cutting tool I've got and sanding tool, and it just made a ton of dust. So after I got that cleaned up, then I could approach this. And I'm going to attempt to reuse this brush tomorrow. I'm hoping that this doesn't put a mark or a crease on the brush. Sometimes you can get away with saving a brush, but if this bag is just barely big enough. But it's a nice heavy duty bag, and if I'm lucky, that'll still be functional tomorrow. It's best if you can just get the plastic like right up on it so it's wet like that, and then sometimes you can save it, sometimes you can't. And you got to wipe out everything. Don't leave any kind of old. Get in there with naphtha and wipe the whole thing out so it's back to plastic, because what will happen is that if you think you've got it clean, you sort of wiped it out with an old rag and you like laid it down, then tomorrow when it's dry, there will be little tiny flakes of crap in this that you don't see until you start working, and then you'll see them in your work. So clean everything. Another thing that people often forget is clean the rim of your paint can before you put the lid back down. Make sure it's really nice, clean. Just clean everything. Be clean if you want to get good results. That's about it, guys. Finished yapping about this. I'm ready to suck down a Sam Adams and call it a night. It's almost midnight, so that's a pretty long day for me. I've been at it since about 10 o'clock this morning. Alright, that's it for the Mountain Storm Workshop. Thanks for watching.